The secret of the Will of D remains one of the greatest mysteries in One Piece. But what if I told you the truth behind the D clan could be finally revealed in the Elbaf arc? In Egghead, we learned that Dr. Vegapunk had been studying the forbidden history of the Void Century, using the knowledge he'd learned on Elbaf. We got to hear much of what Vegapunk had learned during his broadcast, where he shared all he knew with the world. Except for one thing. Just as Vegapunk was about to talk about the D clan, his broadcast was cut off by Saint Valkyrie. Because everything Vegapunk knew came from Elbaf, this means that the information Vegapunk was about to share before he was cut off is currently in the land of the giants, and that the one guarding this information is none other than Jaguar D Saul. In other words, when the Straw Hats finally meet Saul, they will also find all of this knowledge, including what Vegapunk was about to reveal about the D clan during Egghead. What Vegapunk had learned about the Will of D must be extremely important, and something the world government absolutely does not want anyone to know. Right when he was about to talk about it, the elders sprang into action and cut Vegapunk's broadcast as quickly as they could. Among all the things Vegapunk talked about, the truth of the Will of D was potentially one of the most damaging to the world government. Something that could be as big of a bombshell as the people finding out that the world will sink. This connects to the prior One Piece story, where there is something about the Will of D that has the government completely terrified. The world government seemingly has full knowledge of the Will of D and what it actually means. This is revealed by Imu himself, who tells Cobra that the D clan were once his enemies, but that their descendants don't actually know the true meaning of their name. This brings up a very interesting question. If the members of the D clan that are alive do not know the truth of their name, what could Vegapunk have possibly said that could be so dangerous to the world government? Egghead is also not the only time the government has actually tried to censor information about the D. The first time we ever heard about the Will of D, it was in relation to the government having changed Roger's name from Goldie Roger to Gold Roger. The government also wanted to remove the D from Luffy's name after he had awakened the Nika fruit during Wano. Whatever scares the government about the Will of D, it is likely somehow connected to Joy Boy, as both Roger and Luffy are heavily connected to him. Roger was the man who sought and found the One Piece, which in truth was not his treasure, but Joy Boy's treasure. Then there is Luffy, who is the man who awakened the Nika fruit, which was originally Joy Boy's devil fruit. As Imu said the D were once his enemies, based on these examples, the D clan being somehow connected to Joy Boy is all but confirmed. Yet, the question still remains. Most of the current day D clan members do not even know who Joy Boy is. What could possibly be so important about the Will of D that the government does not want the world to know about it at all cost? At the end of this video, I will reveal what I personally think scares the government so much about the D. But before that, let's instead talk about the man who could hold the answer to this question, Jaguar D Saul. It is rather fitting that, of all the characters, the one who could finally end up explaining the Will of D to the Straw Hats would be Saul. Saul's original introduction to the story actually did a lot in building up the mystery of the D. Before Saul, the only known D clan members in the story were Luffy, Roger, Ace, and Blackbeard. Saul was not only the first character to be revealed to have the D to not be a pirate, he was also the first non-human with the initial. The Straw Hats getting to hear this information from Saul could also be a pivotal character moment for Robin. Robin is someone who's been personally interested in the Will of D, ever since he learned that Roger belonged to the D clan on Skypiea. Now that the crew is finally on Elbaf, there would be a lot of weight in Robin getting to know the truth from Saul, who Robin sees as her hero. The knowledge Saul guards is not just any history, but the history that was discovered by Ohara. And this very knowledge is the reason why the Ohara incident happened. It could also be said that what Saul has been doing for over 20 years is that he's been guarding Robin's inheritance, as she's the last survivor of Ohara. This however also brings up the question, would Robin and the Straw Hats actually want to hear Saul out? It would not be the first time in the story where the Straw Hats have actually decided not to learn the true history before reaching the final island. When the Straw Hats met Rayleigh in the pre-time skip, Rayleigh offered to tell them everything, yet the Straw Hats actually refused him, wanting to discover the truth by themselves. Would this then mean that, if Saul on Elbaf offered to tell them the truth of the will of D, they would once again refuse, wanting to only discover it at the final island? My answer is actually no. Unlike with Rayleigh, I think the Straw Hats would want to hear Saul out. The reason why the Straw Hats did not want the answer from Rayleigh was actually because of Rayleigh himself. Robin originally wanted to learn the truth of the will of D from him, but it was Rayleigh who convinced her otherwise. Rayleigh thinks that the scholars of Ohara were too hasty, and that it is better to learn the true history one step at a time, by traveling the world. Heeding his advice, Robin decided that Rayleigh shouldn't tell him everything. We also see that Robin after Sabodi is doing exactly what Rayleigh said, where she's still reading poneglyphs and discovering things about Joy Boy, the ancient weapons, and the true history one step at a time. Robin reuniting with Saul could be another one of these moments, where she could think that she's finally ready to learn about the will of D. What should be noted is that Luffy actually does not care about any of this. Luffy was perfectly willing for Rayleigh to tell Robin about the D, and the only thing Luffy truly cares about not knowing is the One Piece treasure, because he thinks knowing about it would ruin his adventure. In short, if the Straw Hats meet Saul on Elbaf and get to learn about the will of D from him, it is very likely that both Luffy and Robin would be willing to listen. Yet, what if the Straw Hats weren't the only ones who discovered the truth from Saul? The Straw Hats could actually want to share this information with some of the people they know. For one, Kuma and Bonnie are also with the crew on Elbaf. While they are not D-Clan members, both Kuma and Bonnie see Nika as their hero. If the D is indeed connected to Joy Boy, the two of them could be very interested in this information, particularly if it ties to Luffy, the current warrior of liberation. There is also someone outside Elbaf Robin might want to share this information with. Back when they were still allies, Law actually revealed to Robin that he is a D, and Robin knows that Law's new goal is to discover the ancient history. In theory, if Robin actually discovered what the D actually means on Elbaf, she could call Law by a Denden Mushi and tell him what she'd learned. Still, it could also be that Robin would not do this. Law clearly wants to pursue the One Piece and discover the true history by himself, as he broke his alliance with the Straw Hats after Wano. Robin could therefore respect his pride and let Law discover the truth by himself. So far, this video has brought up the idea that the Straw Hats will likely discover what Vegapunk was going to reveal about the D on Elbaf, and that the one who will give them this information will be Saul. This information could be something heavily connected to Joy Boy, and something the government absolutely does not want anyone to know. We've now finally come to the most interesting question of this video. What does Saul actually know about the D? In the past, I've actually never had any strong idea on the will of D in the years I've spent reading One Piece. It was always one of those mysteries like the One Piece treasure itself, where there really wasn't enough information in the story for me to come up with a good answer. I've however finally come up with a theory on what the D could actually be, and why the world government is so set on keeping it a secret. It's actually possible that all the D-Clan members are quite literally cursed, in a very practical sense of the word. It could be that Roger getting an incurable illness was no accident, and that this is the fate of every character with the D initial. However, I won't be talking about this idea here, as it goes way beyond the scope of this video. If you're interested, the next video I'm going to be making on this channel is that the entire D-Clan were given a generational disease during the Void Century, and all of them are destined to die before their time. If the video is already uploaded, you can click here to watch it. If not, give me a few days to finish making it. Other than that, thanks a lot for watching this video to the end.